there were some days where like I spent more time processing and thinking about this season coming up that I totally missed out on the beauty of being present to what was right in front of us. And sometimes we'll squander really precious moments that the Lord is giving us trying to over process what's happening.
Yeah. Welcome everybody. This is going to be a great day.
It's going to be a great day.
I'm already excited. We've been laughing. We're due for a rich dialogue today.
We are.
I'm happy about it. As you hear our daughter in the back, she's coughing. So, or maybe you didn't hear, but just keep Olivia and Justice in your prayers. Mm-hmm. You're getting through it. Yeah. So
they'll be better by the time this airs.
That's true. But we can still ask for prayer.
Yeah, we can.
You know, like it's good.
Yeah.
You know, it's good. All right. So, in good form.
Yes.
What is the question of today?
Okay. The question is, what would you get kicked out of a restaurant for doing?
Oh yeah.
Can we answer for each other?
Ooh,
Yes.
What a curveball. What? Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
I feel like you would get kicked out of a restaurant for maybe laughing too loud.
Mm-hmm. In my mind, I was saying being too loud for me. Being too loud, that would kick me out of a restaurant. Your answer is really easy. She would never get kicked out of a restaurant. There would be nothing. It just doesn't, in the circle of things that could ever happen, you are so compliant. There would never be anything you could do to get kicked out of a restaurant. It couldn't happen.
I am compliant.
The most compliant.
I'll eat the wrong meal
if
it comes out.
Yeah, you won't even say anything to the server. Like, if you order a steak and it's like she has to eat her steaks well done, it is so un-American. It's like you want it so that it's gray all the way through.
I want it fully cooked.
Yeah, fully cooked. And if you got a raw steak, you probably wouldn't say anything.
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
You're so compliant. There's a special place for you in the bosom of the Father.
That's not a good enough answer, though. There has to be an answer.
There has
to be an answer.
So I have to be kicked out for something.
I have to get you kicked out for something now.
Yeah. You got kicked out for laughing too loud.
Wow. Maybe you would get kicked out because you are having too long of a dialogue at the table and the server wants to change tables.
That's true.
You would get booted.
I have had to finally say, like, guys, we should leave.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
But I can see the restaurant being like, we gotta kindly kicking you. It would never be. They would throw me out. I would get thrown out. You would. They would kindly usher out.
Kindly usher me out.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. Let's hope we never get kicked out. Have you ever gotten kicked out of a restaurant?
Well, I'm sure at some point, maybe in high school, we went to CC's Pizza one time
Maybe.
in high school before a football game, and you know it's a buffet.
Yeah.
But we
ate so much.
We ate them out of there, and I'm sure they ushered us out as well. And other times, you know, yeah, it's happened. We don't need to go into that too deeply.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we haven't landed on a title for today's
but we will.
conversation, but there's a theme.
There's a theme.
And the theme is trust.
And it's a theme that he's been on for...
My word. At least 6 months.
Yeah,
Probably
it's been a long time.
more than 6 months. And it kind of started... Oh, man. Yeah, at least 6 months ago, I started to feel these feelings like, I don't know if you've ever had this before, but like there was a massive change about to happen. And I felt it, but I just really couldn't put words to it. I felt it in my gut, you know, I really lean into the gut intuition of things. And I just remember feeling like, what in the world is going on? And not to get too spiritual about it, but I had almost like a visual, like water was like slapping up against like a dam and the dam was about to give way. That's, if I can best sum up what that feeling was like, it felt like that. Bless you. She is just letting her rip, Tater Chip. She just,
Poor Olivia.
Anyway, trying something new, the life of parenting. But I had this sense, and whenever there's something like that, like whether it's like a dream or a feeling that doesn't go away, I always try to bring it to the Lord in prayer.
Yeah.
And just say, God, what's this about? You know, can you point me in direction? And for this particular one, there was a phrase that came to my heart, and the phrase was, and it did make full sense to me when I heard it, but as I began to unpack it with the Lord, it made a lot of sense. And that phrase was out into the trust, out into the trust. And it's like, okay, like almost like out into the deep.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a place in life, or like you ever been, well, maybe not so much you, but in the deep part of a swimming pool, you're really good in the shallow end. Like
I really thrive in the shallow
you are
end.
a shallow survivor. Like
Yes.
you do so well in the shallow end of the pool.
Yes, I do. I really do.
Catching the deep end, there are concerns. We have concerns. I believe you would survive in the deep end.
Thank you.
But it would be with much tumult. So, yeah. But anyway, and it's like this place, I can almost see like when Peter was walking on the water and he really didn't know what was underneath him, but he knew he had to walk, or that same when Jesus was in the boat and he calmed the storm.
Yeah.
And they were just out in the middle of nowhere, and the only thing that all they could do is trust. That's kind of what this season has felt like. Hey, Olivia. Hey, baby. Olivia, why don't you go lay in your bedroom or my bedroom? There's a lot of noises coming out of you right now. Yeah, that's May. You good? You feel okay? All right.
Bring your tissues with you.
All the tissues. Take
and
the box.
And your bag.
And the bag. So,
that part will be cut out.
or keep it.
No.
I mean, let's rock and roll. We've never cut anything out of this. We've never had any edits, right? It's just let her rip. All right. So I'm so proud of you, Olivia.
My tissues and he made me throw my bag away.
Probably should.
Maybe that one.
We'll
We'll
edit.
see. We'll leave it up to our editor.
We'll edit those parts out. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that's kind of what it felt like, and being in this place of trust, and ultimately, I guess we'll do a little life catch up, right?
Sure.
At this point, there was we were really good. Are close to the president and CEO of the organization that we work at, For Kids. We've talked about that before. And some time ago, we found out, and him and his wife told us, "Hey, God's calling us out to the next place, the next thing that He's asked us to do." And initially, when we had that conversation, you're looking at me like,
I'm
your eyes are like, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Your eyes are peering into my soul. I'm like, am I saying something wrong?
I'm listening.
I've said this 18 times. Oh, that was you're intently listening?
Yeah,
to me?
because I'm curious, like we've never talked about it in the perspective of the trust. We've had to talk about this in sharing with other people or conveying what the Lord is doing.
Yeah.
We've never sat and talked about
Boy,
it in the
those
context
brown
of
eyes were
trust.
burning a hole
I
in
was
my
excited.
heart. Good. So having this conversation with him and his wife, and really just sensing that the Lord was calling them out into a different place. And, I began to ask myself, okay, well, what does that mean for us? And I had thought about, okay, God, are you asking me to step into being the leader of this ministry, this organization For Kids? And initially I was like, no, like in my heart, I was like, maybe eventually, but like right now it just seems like too much. It would be too much, with life, with kids, with all the things that we do. And I kind of just prayed about it and sought counsel, wise counsel, and different people in the community that we know and that I trust. And it was odd because a lot of people were like, you should absolutely at least apply. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. Had a good conversation with a friend in Georgia, and he's an amazing guy, and he's like, yeah, buddy, seems like you need to apply for this job. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I'll fast, whenever big decisions come around, the clarity that comes from a fast is amazing.
Yeah.
So if you're in the midst of making a big decision, I encourage you, like there are biblical, spiritual resources and tools that help, and fasting is one of them.
Yeah.
So I go on this fast, and it was about 4 days in, and it was like I describe it like this. It was like a bath bomb. You know, you ever throw like, not that I take many baths, but it was the girls, you know, they get these bath bombs. You toss it in the tub and it's like, poof, and then it fizzles. And it was like, it felt like a bath bomb went off in my heart. And like, it just gave me peace. And it just was like this cleansing peace that I knew I was supposed to put my hat in the ring. I knew I was supposed to apply. And long story short, it was a 7-step interview process, multiple meetings for every step. Had to interview with a third-party CEO recruiting firm. And it was like, we'll share this on the podcast, but with every step that we move forward, I'd be like, Rochelle, they just invited me to the next step. And then we would look at each other and we would laugh for about 5 minutes. Like, God, are you really doing this? Like, we would crack up like every time. And we actually learned a lot about each other in that process. You know, the step 1, step 2, step 3. When it got to about step 4, it was like, this is really serious. Like, God, it looks like you're doing this. And I remembered every time I would come home and say, all right, I'm moving on to the next step, after Rochelle would get done laughing, after we would laugh together, there would be this, you would really want to help me by letting me know all that could happen, all that almost like, what's the risks, you know? And she would talk a lot about the risks, and got to the point where I'm like, you know, hey, in this season, this was a good marriage moment for us.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, in this season, like, I really just need you to like relentlessly, if you agree with this, if you believe that God's doing this, I don't really need to know the risks at this point. Like, we're good on them. I just need you to support me. And I could tell something shifted in a good way, where, and I don't want to speak for you, but it was like the very things that made you good at life and who you are and your job, I didn't need those strengths in that season. I needed you just to like, all right, you got this, you know? So anyway, long story short, it got down, it was like, what, a 3-month process? Almost 4-month process. And I got invited into our board meeting. And I remember, so my title was director when I walked into the board meeting. And I was like, I don't know why they're calling me, and I'm probably going to get asked a bunch more questions and have to really answer things. And it was like surreal. The person that was talking was like, yeah, I just want to make this announcement. Andrew has been unanimously voted in as the president of 4 kids. Now all the celebrations, thank you. And in that moment, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what the trust was about. This is what I had been feeling for more than 6, well, it's really been more than 6 months, closer to a year probably now.
January-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's so funny, like there's so much to unpack in that, but this has changed our lives. And I'm maybe 3 weeks in as the leader of this organization. And, it's incredibly humbling to see what the Lord has done and what he's doing in our personal life, you know, and this is a major transition.
Sure.
And it requires a lot of trust. Yes. So I don't know, any comments or feedback?
No, I would say for me with trust, like everybody, I suddenly have a frog in my throat.
You better catch him.
For me, like everybody processes things so differently, right? I mean, the way that you are wired, you look at change or transition or like a big thing, like you look at it like an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, yes, let's go. And I am much more of a slower processor where I need time. And so, you know, as we're talking about trusting in transitions, one thing that caught me off guard, because I like you, we were praying and the Lord was also doing things in my heart, like at the top of the year, it was the first time ever where I started feeling like, I have to clear my throat.
I was going to be like, go ahead, let's pause it and just let her rip.
It's just like, no. At the top of the year, for the first time ever, I started feeling, I remember like driving down the road and having these thoughts that I never had before, like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to have a season of being home with the kids, or like
this
being
is
a stay-at-home
previous
mom. To all of this.
Yeah.
We're talking about like that January time frame again. And I remember being like, oh, that was an interesting thought. I've never had that thought before. And then we would talk it through, and even in June, still in the middle of this process, but I also am a very, like, you don't know what you don't know person. So like until it happens, I'm like, I'm going to believe and hope and faith, but I'm also going to live in present day, like what's happening right now. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but that's kind of how I have tended to approach things. So I remember in June, we were doing a life group with our church was in like life group season. We were in the second week. And I remember one of the questions was, what does everybody see? Like, what do you sense God is calling you to? What do you sense like the ministry God is calling you to? And I remember second week of June, this is now 2 months before this decision was made, right? Yeah. I remember my answer was, I really feel like something is going to shift. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I think I'm going to have a season of being home. I remember that was my answer. I was like, I think my next ministry season is going to be like being like spending more time pouring into my children, my family. And I remember I said, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I just feel like that's the next thing whenever the next thing happens. So I'm leading all that up to say, because of all those things I feel like the Lord's doing in my heart, when the transition or this decision happened, I fully anticipated the only emotion to be like excitement, confirmation, like, yes, let's go. Sorry, the kids are texting.
Oh, I gave her more screen time. Okay, it says she requested more, and I gave her another hour.
Oh, good. Yeah. What I wasn't expecting was feeling like I needed to process the very thing that I had been anticipating or praying for or believing for.
Ooh.
That was very interesting to me. I very much anticipated, like, I'm praying for this thing. I'm expecting God to do this thing. So when it happens, I'm going to be like, yes, let's go. And I'm there, like, yes, let's go. But what I wasn't expecting was to have a moment to be like, oh my gosh, it's here. Now what? So
I have a title for that.
Okay.
I was talking about that with our friends today.
Okay.
And I am going to call that sophisticated emotions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that actually was something that... Sophisticated emotions.
I wanted to sing a song when you said it.
Because it has that.
I felt like
got
it required
it needs a jingle.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like a segment, on those TV programs that have like multiple segments.
Uh-huh. That's a segment?
Yeah, they'll do like funny segments or like little skits. When you said it, I envisioned like a segment of like a funny show.
Uh-oh. We got a spinoff.
We
got our first spinoff. Sophisticated emotions. Yes. And it's interesting because I really don't process like as I go. It's like, this is happening, we're gonna do it. This is happening, next step. Hear God, okay, let's go. And I know that, that's just one of the things that's a strength, I think, at times, but also could be sometimes that catches up. And there are things that need to be processed that I don't even know exist. And it's funny, like when you were talking about, you didn't know that you would have to, oh, another child's coming. Hi, Justice. You need some more?
You got it. Wait.
It's okay. Wait.
No.
No?
Just send a request.
She looks like she's about to let us have it.
Do me a favor. Go get me my phone from next to the bed, and then I'll take care of all that for you girls.
Extra interruptions today.
Extra interruptions.
You would never think that we sing. You would never think that. I forgot what I said. What was that? Sophisticated emotions. Sophisticated emotions. So.
Okay. It's next to my bed. We might have a lot of cuts this episode, guys.
We might. We're going to let our editor,
out into the trash,
extraordinary, the producer, sort that however she'd like.
Listen, this is a family.
You better let them know.
Family podcast.
Family podcast.
Our cover picture is our family. We're in our home, our living. This is a family
Welcome
podcast.
Homes. We're
Welcome
in the house
homes.
right
We're in
now.
the house.
And the children are here.
That's it.
You know, sophisticated emotion. I didn't realize that you would possibly be grieving what you had in terms of a career.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to be something that I thought was like, you expressed. Like,
I too was not expecting it.
So
caught me off guard.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm asking, like, what do you do?
I have really had to lean into trusting. I've had to lean into trusting the Lord. One thing that I have done over the past several weeks and months, and here's the thing, that first week too, I probably would not have gone in so many directions emotionally and processing wise had I been like, I had gotten so caught up in the swirl of the busyness that week that I wasn't, obviously I'm still praying, reading my word, talking to the Lord, but I wasn't, that week, like when everything was happening, it required more time
with him,
with the Lord.
Yeah.
And it was like on the heels of like school starting back and just all sorts of stuff. And I should have, in hindsight, I'm saying this, not like I'm flogging myself or a woe is me at all. Saying this in like hindsight, it's 2020, right? I should have contended for more time, because what has really helped me these past few weeks that now I'm like, yes, let's go. Now I can talk about like, oh yeah, I'm still in the transition, but I talk about it with a lot of hope and joy and like, oh, it's exciting, as opposed to like, what's going to happen? Because I intentionally am spending that time just with the Lord, just like almost just dumping it all out.
Yeah.
And so, I'll go for like long walks, or I'll just spend time here praying and talking to the Lord. But like, I'm going through every thought and emotion. I'm like, God, this is what I'm feeling. God, here's what's going on. Lord, I'm realizing now how much of my identity might have been wrapped up in what I did.
Sure.
Or here's what I'm dealing with or whatever. And I'm trying to find two more things I'll say. I'm just leaning on to the scriptures that I find. It's funny because I read a lot of the studies with First Five, and it was.
That's an app?
It's an app, and from the Proverbs 31 ministry. But here's what was so funny. I can't remember when everything was announced, or when it was like maybe a week before, like a couple weeks ago, right?
It's
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Between 2 and 3 weeks ago.
So,
and today is the 14th.
Okay, so First Five started a 7-week study, 6 or 7 week study, launched on September 9th, called Where Do I Belong? And it's like a 6 or 7 week study through 20 books in the Bible of people who were in exile. And it's all about like in transition moments. So I'm trying to lean into like I feel like that's like a wink from God, right? Like this would launch the same season that I'm like asking these transition questions.
You feel like you're being exiled from
Not exile, but transition.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then the third thing I would say is I've been really, really intentional about filling the noise in my life with people who have positive confessions.
Yeah.
I used to look at people who had positive confessions like you are tone deaf, or you are living in the clouds, or you just are not facing reality. I'm much more realizing that like that is an intentional response,
right,
to like encourage yourself in the Lord, filling yourself with people who can see what God is doing
Right,
and can
positive, right?
speak life into it. So for example, if I'm saying like, oh man, I'm transitioning out of full-time work, I'm going to be home, you filling yourself with a person that's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best season ever.
Right.
You'll be able to return to that work or whatever after, but like the time you're going to have with your kids now, as opposed to like, oh, whatever any response could be. So just filling yourself with people who are able to still acknowledge, like we've got a couple friends in our lives that are walking through a really hard life.
Hard situation.
You ask them how they're doing and it's like, we're great. And like they are willing to acknowledge the hard part of it, but they're also willing to see what God is doing. We have another friend just found out, recently walking through just some stuff. And I'm like, I would have never known the past few months when I've seen this person. Every time I ask how you're, like, I'm great, I'm amazing. And it's like, again, not unwilling to acknowledge the hard parts of life or the hard, not that what we're saying is like, we're not in a hard season, we're in a transition season.
Right.
It's a great, amazing season, but it's transition and it's learning a new rhythm as a family within our marriage with each other. Been finding the people that are gonna champion that and be like, man, I'm praying for you. I understand this transition, but your best days are ahead of you. This is exciting, blah, blah, blah. Allowing yourself to feel the fields like David did in Bible, but also you've taught me this, like, okay, acknowledge how you're feeling, but can we end with, but yet you're holy?
Yeah.
Like, can we end with the goodness of what God is doing?
I think, you hit on really good stuff because this has probably been one of the most exciting seasons of our life. Like we've had some really, really cool things happen. And like, this is like, oh God, I can see what you're doing. Within it, I think the thing that we are feeling is the weightiness of it, right? The weight of just leadership in this way. And it's so funny what that weight surfaces, right?
Yeah.
Like whenever you're carrying like something weighty in the gym or whatever, like different things pop up and can surface. You start, like I remember the first time I squat, I got on the squat rack. Yeah. And I remember, for all of those of you who hit the gym, congratulations. But I remember the first time that I put weight on my back that was over 250 pounds, and the next day I had muscles hurting that I didn't know existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the only way I even knew that muscle exists is because I got up underneath the weight.
It's true.
And I think it's
good.
a good way to look at this. It's like, oh man, I didn't know this about myself until I got up under the weight of what God was calling me to do and asking me to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, you love the results, from the gym. You love being stronger. But you also have to walk through like, ooh, this is a little sore. Ooh, this one's a little sore. Yeah. Especially when you walk up the stairs. But yeah, it's a really unique season, for us and really exciting. But it's cool to see the very things that really made you excel at just all the things you do, whether you're volunteering, whether you're working, your mind to really cast a wide net and understand all of the different pieces and perspectives and angles makes you really good at quality assurance. With that same knowledge base and experience base and perspectives, you're able to say, but there still is a requirement of my soul to acknowledge the goodness of God.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a scripture that I was thinking about. Go for it.
Can I just say something before you do? Yeah. Because if you are like me and you can be a little bit of a slower processor, and that allows you to pick up multiple different angles or multiple different outcomes of how something could be or whatever, like just don't miss out on the goodness of what is happening right now because you're so busy processing everything going on. That is one thing when I was praying last week, and I even think I said to you, I'm like, oh man, like there were some days where like I spent more time processing and thinking about this season coming up that I totally missed out on the beauty of being present to what was right in front of us. Just totally missed out on just the joy of everything that was happening. And I'll not in a regretful way, but in a way to learn from, like, I'll never get that day back. I'll never get the first moment of, the first time maybe I told, this person close to me about this, or this particular person about that. I'll never get that first moment back. And sometimes we'll squander really precious moments that the Lord is giving us trying to over process what's happening. Over process the season, or over process what's coming. Or again, those of us who maybe like to, maybe certain surprises in the past have caught us off guard and negative. So now we try to control every moment, right? And you try to control the narrative, or control the outcome, or control what's going to happen. And you're spending so much time controlling the moment, controlling the narrative, that you totally miss out on the beauty of what's happening right now, right? I've used this example in the terms of comparison, but I'm going to use this too for not being present. It would be as if we went out to eat and our meal came out, and I'm so busy worrying. I'm so busy when the appetizer comes out, wondering when the entree is going to come and how long it's going to take to cook, and that I miss then the waiter comes and removes all the appetizers, and I didn't get to taste it. And then he brings the entree. And I'm so busy wondering about, like, I wonder what the dessert's going to be. How long is it going to take? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to have anything in there I'm allergic to? I wonder what. And then everyone around me is eating the entree.
That's exhausting.
But a lot of us do this.
I know.
And then the waiter comes and clears the table, and now I've missed the entree.
Yeah.
And then the dessert comes, and I'm wondering, like, oh, are my kids okay? I got to get home soon. And then I can leave a whole night only having read the menu and never having tasted the food.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, hopefully that analogy made sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
I'm talking it out as I go, but I think sometimes we can read the book, we can know the narrative, we can listen to the message, we can sing out the words, and we can get the concept in our hearts. But then when it's time to walk it out, we can almost completely miss what God is doing because our wheels are spinning, and we're thinking, and we're processing, and we're talking, and we're blah, 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 blah. Not that that's not worthy. It's all worthy. But also don't miss out on the beauty of what's right in front of you.
I think there's an art there, especially for people who are, the best way I can describe your wiring, and we're pretty opposite in the way that we view things. My disc profile, I just think it's a good way to look at things. Like I'm high D and high I, and your disc profile, you're high S and high C. What is the S and C again?
Steady and compliant.
And I'm dominant and influential, or and I got very little S and very little C. So it's like, you complete me.
Oh.
Cheese. But it's interesting to have to like understand that for me, it's really easy to be present, fully present with people. Like it's really easy for me just to, almost to the tune of like, I used to get in trouble when we started dating because I wouldn't even look at my phone, because I'd be around people and I would just forget about it. And she'd text me and 3 hours would go by, and it was something that she needed me to respond to. And she's like, don't you care about me? I texted you. And I wanted to know what you wanted to eat. And I'll be like, I was with people. I was working, And it was like, there was a little tension there in the beginning when we were dating. And then like learning each other and growing each other, it's like the art of just simply being present. That's something that can be challenging, right? Especially if your gifting is to analyze and to be compliant and to have this steadiness about you. So
analysis paralysis.
Ooh, girl. There's a scripture that I wanted to talk about, and then that's not even the main scripture we wanted to talk about yet. So when you were talking about that, Philippians 4:6, don't worry about anything. Don't worry about anything. So do not worry about anything that could exist. Anything that could possibly bring you worry, don't do it, right? That, I think the scripture is so powerful. Like and I have stuff that I worry about, like, and I have stuff that kind of can dominate my thinking too at times. And it's like the Bible gives us permission to not worry, to not be anxious. What then do we do? And you said you did this. Pray about everything instead, right? Pray. So don't worry about anything. In fact, pray about it all. That's one of the things that I've been growing in, giving God the details of my life, remembering specific worries or questions that I had, and not letting them just get lost in my mind, but actually being diligent to write them down. And then when I go to the Lord in prayer, ask God these very deep questions that you just don't get to on the surface. It actually takes a deep work to return to the place when you're asking yourself really significant questions. I find that when I articulate those things to God, he begins to move. Like, it's wild. When I can pray to God the very deep things in my heart, questions that surface when I'm in the middle of a hard situation, and I bring it back up. God, I didn't know what to do when this person said this about me. I didn't know what answer to have. Or God, when I was put in this position, I really wish that I had felt differently about it. God, why was I feeling so worried? Going back to those places in prayer, what does it do? It really frees you. Tell God what you need and thank him for all that he's done. That's Philippians 4:6. So anyway, I heard you say, as you were talking about it, you did that. Like I think you said you went on your walk and you just tell God everything.
Yeah.
It's like that's the remedy for anxiety.
Yes.
Like that is the spiritual pill for worry. Like if you can be as diligent as you are while thinking about all the situations that could be, if you can insert the scripture, which is a prescription, it's a prescription for whatever you need in the moment that you need it. If you can insert the scripture instead of the anxiety, God's going to do something with it.
Sure.
And thank him that he's already done it, right? That's what that scripture says.
No, it's true. And, I was going to read my spirit
Ooh, she
field.
going to the spirit field. I got mine too.
So the verse 6 and 7, I'm going to read a different version, New King James, and it says, be anxious for nothing. In Philippians 4:6, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. And the breakdown here of supplication says, supplication is more than petitioning, but suggests an intensity of earnestness in extended prayer, not to gain merit by many words, but to fully transfer the burden of one's soul into God's hands. Prayer and peace are closely, I love this, prayer and peace are closely connected. One who entrusts cares to Christ instead of fretting over them will experience the peace of God to guard him from nagging anxiety.
Ooh.
Come on.
You describing anxiety. Wow.
Listen. And so again, it's like the supplication is not just, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Because I strongly feel like this is something the Lord revealed to me a couple years ago. We carry burdens so deep within us that it can appear as though, it can present as though in our lives that like, I am actively giving this to the Lord because I'm thinking about it when I wake up. I'm thinking about it when I go to sleep. I'm carrying this throughout the day, and it's like, God knows my heart. God knows what's inside of me. And so because sometimes the things that we walk through are so like deep within us, it can feel as though I am doing this supplication with the Lord.
Oh, good. Yeah. Talk about it.
But if we really examine ourselves, that thing that is burdening you, have you, and for many of us it is, but for some of us, if we ask ourselves like, have I really engaged in supplication? Length, extended prayer, not for merit of words, but because like you're talking every detail out, everything out to the Lord to give it to him. Have you really taken extended time to lay everything down at the feet of the Lord? You might have engaged in conversation with other people who are filled with wisdom to gain godly perspective. You may have wept bitterly hours about this thing, but have you talked everything of this thing out with the Lord?
Yeah.
I have found, I can only speak for myself, that sometimes when I've looked back, even today, you know, I went to a workshop this morning, and they were bringing.
Symposium?
It wasn't a symposium.
Oh, sorry.
It was a workshop.
I've been
friends.
calling it a symposium just because I wanted to use the word.
But they even brought up some things this morning that I'm like, that is an area in my heart that I've not paid attention to. That's something that probably needs more discussion or more thought with the Lord. So again, just like, how do we battle anxiety? How do we battle not worrying about everything? We take all those things like, and too, like a lot of the things that we worry about, again, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure people resonate with me. A lot of things I worry about are things that haven't actually even happened.
Ooh, and I always would say to you,
Yeah.
hey, let's try not to create realities that don't exist.
Yeah. There are things that could happen or things that I feel strongly may happen, but they're not things that have actually happened.
Right.
A lot of times we're in the middle of stuff and we kind of formulate like, this is probably how it's going to end, or this might be how it's going to end, but it hasn't gotten there yet.
Right.
And so like, we don't know what we don't know. And so, you know, how do we combat that worry, that nagging anxiety, as it says? Like, we wake up and we talk to the Lord about it, and we go through our day and we talk to the Lord about it, and we bring it. Of course, you bring other people in, but like constantly giving it over to the Lord in the rawness of it. God, this is how this makes me feel. God, I'm scared right now. God, I'm worried. I'm a bit anxious. Like, my chest feels tight. I feel like I can't breathe right now. Like,
Sure.
I need you to talk me out of this, God, or walk me through this. I am not at peace today. I am not well today. I am really struggling. I feel stretched. I feel this. I feel that, you know, and then replace it with scripture. But I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. But the joy of the Lord is my strength. And begin to have, you know, those scriptures ready to pull out and cover what it is that you're walking through or feeling.
It's interesting to me, right? There's a lot of themes in that are really pointing back to, in my mind, like one thing, right? Like, God gives us these tools in scripture. Not like tools don't work if they're just sitting on the shelf. Tools work when you pick them up and you use them, right? You could build amazing things. You can do amazing things. You can fix things when you use the tools. God gives us the tools in his word to do exactly what you're saying. And as you're getting down to what's in your heart, right? And I think that's why God is saying, pray about everything. For me, I'm not a very detailed person when it comes to, I always try to get to the 60,000 foot overview. Summarize this for me. What are the cliff notes? Like, I think that way naturally, right? I look at the big picture naturally. But when I actually get into the details of my heart, let's just not even say with God. Let's say I give a person, a friend, the details of my heart, and I tell them what's going on. Well, the only reason I can do that is because I trust that friend.
Yeah.
When you give somebody the details of your life, there's the common ground that I trust you.
Yeah.
And I think that is why it's special to God. You can't see him. You have faith in him. Maybe some of you wrestle to believe in him.
Yeah.
Even speaking out the things you're feeling, the things you're dealing with, the details of the things that might be making you feel anxious or maybe not anxious. Maybe there's insert whatever emotion situation. If you can give God those details, you're building this bridge of trust. And that to me is profound, because it's like it's something, I don't want to say the one thing, but it's something that's so dear to his heart. So I want to walk through, in light of this transition, right? I'd like to walk through just what his word says about trust in the very practical applications of our life. Like we talked a bit about really what we've been feeling and processing and in the excitement and in the, whoa, there are these things too. It's like, oh, there's this common ground that's required of me, and it's trust, and I want to give it. I want to walk through scripture and talk about that just a little bit, but I think that it best be done in part 2. If you've been in a situation where you're just waiting for a break, you're waiting for life to treat you kindly, you're waiting for things just to go in your direction, don't just wait for it. Know God intimately. Invite him into every space that exists. Give him everything you've ever had. Give him your thoughts, give him your understanding, give him your heart, give him the wins, give him the losses. Invite God in so that you can know him, because the promise is, if you do that, he will direct your paths.
Yep.